Blood dripped from Raymond Washington's perfectly manicured nails as he stared at his phone. $3 billion. Gone. The airline CEO who had him removed from first class 6 hours ago was now begging on the other end of the line. Raymond smiled. I'm just getting started. Before we dive into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you're ready to witness how one man's humiliation turned into corporate America's wake-up call, hit that like button and subscribe now. The power shift you're about to see will make you question everything you thought you knew about fighting discrimination in modern America. Raymond Jackson stood in the jetway of Gate C-17 at O'Hare International Airport, briefcase in one hand, first-class boarding pass in the other. At 43, he carried himself with the quiet confidence that came from building CyberShield, a cybersecurity empire now valued at $7.3 billion. His charcoal Tom Ford suit fit perfectly over his 6'2" frame, a far cry from the second-hand clothes he'd worn growing up in South Chicago. Today was pivotal. In 4 hours, he would be sitting across from Department of Defense officials, finalizing a $1.9 billion security contract that would cement CyberShield as the premier cybersecurity provider for government systems. The presentation was loaded on his tablet, each slide representing hundreds of hours of work from his team. First-class passengers may now board, announced the gate agent. Raymond stepped forward, boarding pass extended. The gate agent scanned it without looking up, and Raymond proceeded down the jetway. He nodded politely to the flight attendant greeting passengers at the aircraft door. "Welcome aboard," she said automatically before her eyes flicked up to his face. Her welcoming smile faltered slightly. "Your boarding pass, sir?" Raymond presented it again. "Seat 2A. The flight attendant, Veronica according to her name tag, examined his boarding pass with unusual scrutiny. "One moment, please." Raymond felt the familiar weight in his stomach. He'd experienced this countless times over the years. The subtle shift when someone realized a black man was claiming space in a predominantly white environment. "Is there a problem?" he asked, keeping his voice steady. "I just need to verify something," Veronica replied, not meeting his eyes. She stepped back into the galley and whispered something to a male flight attendant. The male flight attendant, a tall white man with graying temples and a name tag reading David Whitmore, lead flight attendant, approached with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Sir, I believe there may be some confusion with your boarding pass. First class is this way," he said, gesturing to the left cabin as if Raymond had made a wrong turn. "I'm aware," Raymond replied, handing over his boarding pass again. "Seat 2A. David examined the boarding pass with exaggerated care. "This doesn't look right. Our first class is fully booked with our regular passengers today." The implication hung in the air. Regular passengers, not people like Raymond. "My boarding pass and ID," Raymond said, pulling out his driver's license. "I'm in seat 2A. David barely glanced at the ID. "There seems to be a system error. Why don't you step aside while we sort this out? The rest of the passengers need to board." Raymond stood his ground. "I've paid for first class. I have a confirmed seat assignment. There is no error except the assumption I don't belong here." Several white passengers had paused behind him, watching the exchange. None spoke up. One businessman in a navy suit made eye contact with Raymond, then looked away uncomfortably. "Sir, I need you to lower your voice," David said, though Raymond hadn't raised it. "I haven't raised my voice," Raymond stated calmly, pulling out his phone. "But I am going to record this interaction." David's face hardened. "Photography and recording are against company policy on the aircraft." "We're not on the aircraft. We're in the jetway, which is airport property," Raymond countered. "Now, are you going to honor my ticket or do I need to escalate this?" David stepped back and spoke into a handheld radio. "Security to door 3C, please." Raymond's pulse quickened. 25 years of success, a company worth billions, and yet here he stood, being treated like an intruder. He thought of his childhood in South Chicago, where he taught himself coding on a donated computer at the community center, while working 3 jobs to help his mother pay rent. 2 airport security officers arrived within minutes. "This passenger is being disruptive and refusing to comply with crew instructions," David informed them, deliberately avoiding mention of the valid boarding pass in Raymond's hand. I have a valid first-class ticket, Raymond said to the officers. They're refusing to honor it without explanation. Sir, if the flight crew has asked you to deplane, we need to escort you off, said the older security officer, a white man with a buzz cut. On what grounds? Raymond asked. Safety concerns. David interjected. Raymond looked around at the other first-class passengers who were now being ushered past him onto the plane. This is discrimination, plain and simple. Sir, please don't make this difficult, the younger security officer said. We can discuss this in the terminal. Aware that arguing further could escalate to something more dangerous, Raymond relented. With the security officers flanking him, he walked back up the jetway, dignity intact but humiliation burning beneath his calm exterior. As he was escorted through the terminal, Raymond noticed people staring, some filming with their phones. In that moment, he flashed back to his first investor meeting 10 years ago, when he'd been asked to wait in the reception area because they assumed he was a delivery person, rather than the CEO pitching for funding. Back then, he'd swallowed the humiliation. Today was different. Today, there would be consequences. He checked his watch. The flight's departure meant he would miss his pre-meeting with the DoD officials. Years of work potentially jeopardized, because someone decided he didn't look like he belonged in first class. As the security officers left him at the main terminal, Raymond pulled out his phone and called Tamika Williams, his COO and longtime friend. They pulled me off the flight, he said when she answered. What? Why? Tamika's voice came through, sharp with concern. Why do you think? Raymond replied quietly. There was a moment of silence on the line. Tamika had been with him since the early days. She understood without further explanation. I'm coming to get you, she said. And Ray? This time they picked the wrong person to mess with. As Raymond ended the call, his phone pinged with a notification. Someone had posted a video of his removal online. It was already gaining traction. Skyway Airlines had no idea what was coming. Raymond sat in the executive lounge at O'Hare, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. His reflection in the window showed a man composed, but the storm raging inside him threatened to break through at any moment. The DoD meeting, the culmination of 18 months of proposals, demonstrations, and negotiations, was now in jeopardy. 7 minutes of prejudice had potentially derailed years of work. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the incident. The video was spreading. We're flying while black was already trending. The door to the lounge swung open, and Tamika Williams strode in, radiating controlled fury. At 41, Tamika had been Raymond's right hand since they'd launched CyberShield from a cramped apartment. Her expertise in operations had been crucial in scaling the company from startup to industry giant. I saw the video, she said, sitting across from him. It's worse than I imagined. Raymond nodded, his jaw tight. They didn't even check my ID properly. Didn't even pretend to verify anything. Just saw my face and decided. The DoD meeting? I called them. They agreed to reschedule for tomorrow, but I could hear the concern in their voices. This kind of publicity right before a government contract. This isn't on you, Tamika said firmly. This is on Skyway Airlines and every person who stood by watching it happen. Raymond's phone rang. Unknown number. Raymond Jackson, he answered. Mr. Jackson, this is Patricia Nelson from Skyway Airlines Customer Relations. We understand there was an unfortunate incident during boarding today. Raymond's grip tightened on his phone. Unfortunate incident? Is that what you call racial profiling and public humiliation of a paying customer? Sir, we take these matters very seriously. We're conducting an internal investigation. Who authorized my removal from the flight? Raymond interrupted. I don't have that information at this time. We're still gathering facts. Let me save you some time, Ms. Nelson. The facts are simple. I had a valid first-class ticket. Your staff took one look at me and decided I didn't belong there. No verification, no proper procedure, just prejudice. Mr. Jackson, I assure you, Skyway Airlines does not discriminate. Save the prepared statement, Raymond cut in. I want to speak with your CEO, Harold Thompson. Mr. Thompson's schedule is extremely full, but I'd be happy to escalate this to our Vice President of Customer Experience. Do you know who I am, Ms. Nelson? A pause. I understand you're upset. I'm Raymond Jackson, CEO of CyberShield. Another pause, longer this time. The name had registered. I'll see what I can do, Mr. Jackson. As Raymond ended the call, Tamika was already on her tablet scrolling through information. Ray, Skyway uses our security infrastructure. NimbleGuard powers their entire booking system, payment processing, and operational controls. Raymond's expression shifted as the realization dawned. They're a Tier 1 client. Full integration across all platforms, Tamika confirmed. Everything from their mobile app to their flight operations runs through our systems. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. The airline that had just discriminated against Raymond relied on his company's technology to function. When was their last security compliance audit? Raymond asked, his mind already calculating possibilities. Tamika checked the database. 8 months ago. They're due for a quarterly review next week. Move it up, Raymond said quietly. Today. Tamika looked up, understanding flashing in her eyes. A full compliance audit would temporarily restrict access to certain features while systems are tested, including payment processing and operational control systems. It's in the contract. We can suspend services for up to 24 hours for security audits without prior notice. The door opened again, and Andre Phillips, Raymond's lawyer and college friend, walked in. His normally easygoing demeanor was replaced with simmering anger. I came as soon as I saw the video, Andre said. We have grounds for a major discrimination lawsuit. Clear violation of your civil rights, public humiliation, interference with business activities. Raymond nodded. We'll pursue that angle, but I'm thinking of something more immediate. Andre raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? Skyway Airlines runs on CyberShield technology. Every ticket sold, every flight scheduled, every payment processed goes through our systems. Understanding dawned on Andre's face. A security audit? Exactly, Raymond said. Completely within our contractual rights. Andre considered this. Legally sound, but the timing could be seen as retaliatory. It's not retaliation, Raymond countered. It's a wake-up call. They humiliated me because they didn't know who I was. Because they looked at my skin and made assumptions. How many other black passengers face the same treatment without the power to respond? His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. The DoD officials were concerned about the viral video. The contract wasn't guaranteed anymore. They cost me more than dignity today, Raymond said quietly. They potentially cost me a $1.9 billion contract. Actions have consequences. Tamika was already on her phone, contacting their technical team. Andre was reviewing the Skyway contract, confirming their legal position. Raymond stared out the window at a Skyway plane taking off, the company logo gleaming in the sunlight. In 6 minutes, he had gone from valued customer to security threat, based solely on the color of his skin. In another 6 minutes, Skyway Airlines would learn exactly who they had messed with. The glass-walled conference room at CyberShield headquarters buzzed with tense energy as Raymond addressed his emergency response team. Executives, legal counsel, and tech specialists sat around the massive table, tablets and laptops open, faces grim with determination. I want to be clear about what happened today, Raymond said, standing at the head of the table. I was publicly humiliated and removed from a flight because of racial profiling. The video is viral. Our DoD contract is now uncertain. He clicked a remote, and security footage from the airport appeared on the wall screen, showing his removal from the aircraft from multiple angles. Options? Raymond asked, looking around the table. Andre Phillips, legal counsel, spoke first. Standard course would be a discrimination lawsuit, clear-cut case, substantial damages given the public nature, and business impact. Timeline? Raymond asked. 18 to 24 months minimum, Andre replied. Longer if they fight it, which they will. Raymond shook his head. Too long. Next. Tamika tapped her tablet. We've confirmed Skyway Airlines' complete dependency on our systems. NimbleGuard handles their payment processing, booking interface, customer data, and flight operations. Their entire digital infrastructure runs through us. And our contract with them? Raymond asked. Section 14.3 allows for immediate security compliance audits if we detect potential vulnerabilities, Tamika said. During such audits, we can restrict system functionality to test integrity. Completely legal. Raymond nodded slowly, mind racing through possibilities. Would this affect their operations? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Jason Chen, Chief Technology Officer, leaned forward. A full-spectrum security audit would temporarily freeze payment processing, limit booking capabilities, and require manual verification of flight operations while we test system integrity. In other words, Raymond said, they'd be crippled. Jason nodded. For up to 24 hours per our agreement. The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. Have you ever faced discrimination and wished you had the power to respond immediately? Comment 1. If you've ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you based on your appearance. Hit like if you believe Raymond is justified in using his position to fight back. And subscribe to see more stories about power dynamics flipped upside down. But here's the real question. Is using business leverage to fight discrimination justified, or does it cross an ethical line? Let's find out what Raymond decided. There are ethical considerations, said Dr. Maya Patel, Chief Ethics Officer. Using our contractual rights as a response to discrimination could be seen as conflating business with personal grievance. Raymond turned to her. Maya, is it ethical for companies to discriminate with impunity because the legal system moves too slowly for real accountability? No, she admitted. But two wrongs. This isn't about revenge, Raymond interrupted. It's about immediate consequences for unacceptable behavior. Skyway Airlines needs to understand that discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's bad. Business. He walked to the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. For a moment, he was transported back to his childhood apartment where he could see these same skyscrapers in the distance, seemingly unreachable from his South Side neighborhood. When I was 17, Raymond said quietly, I interviewed for a scholarship program at Illinois Tech. The interviewer asked if I was sure I was in the right room, suggested maybe I was looking for the service worker applications instead. He turned back to face the team. I showed him my perfect SAT scores, my 4.0 GPA, the coding projects I'd built on a computer that crashed every 30 minutes. And you, know what he said? Exceptional. For someone from your background. The room remained silent. I've spent my entire career being exceptional, being twice as good to get half as far. Building this company so I'd never have to accept that kind of treatment again. His voice remained steady, but emotion simmered beneath the surface. And yet today, none of that mattered. One look at my skin, and I was escorted off a plane like a criminal. Tamika spoke up. If we do this, what's the end goal? What do we want from Skyway? Accountability, Raymond answered immediately. David, Whitmore and any staff involved in the incident fired. Company-wide anti-bias training. Diverse hiring initiatives with real metrics. And a public apology acknowledging exactly what happened. Andre looked skeptical. They'll never agree to all that. They will when their systems are down, their payments are frozen, and their stock is plummeting, Raymond countered. Jason raised a practical concern. The audit will affect innocent passengers, flights delayed, bookings disrupted. Inconvenience versus injustice, Raymond replied. How many passengers spoke up when they saw me being removed? Not one. Sometimes systemic change requires widespread discomfort. He looked around the table, making eye contact with each team member. I built Cyber Shield to protect people. But protection isn't just about firewalls and encryption. It's about standing up against wrongs, using the power we have to create change. Raymond paused. I'm not ordering this. I'm asking if you're with me. One by one, they nodded. Initiate the security compliance audit, Raymond said to Jason. Full spectrum, maximum cautionary protocols. Jason began typing commands. System access restrictions will begin cascading through their network in approximately 6 minutes. Raymond checked his watch. Perfect timing. On the wall screen, a Skyway Airlines commercial played silently, showing smiling flight attendants, welcoming diverse passengers aboard. The company tagline appeared, "Skyway Airlines, where everyone belongs." Raymond stared at the screen, his expression unreadable. "We'll see about that." Harold Thompson, CEO of Skyway Airlines, was midway through his quarterly presentation to regional managers when his phone vibrated for the third time in 2 minutes. Irritated, he glanced down to see multiple urgent messages from his chief technology officer. System critical failure. Payment processing down. Operations systems restricted. Harold excused himself and stepped into the hallway, immediately dialing his CTO. "Talk to me, Sarah. What's happening?" he demanded. Sarah Jenkins' voice came through, tight with stress. "All systems connected to NimbleGuard are going into restricted mode. Payment processing is completely frozen. We can't access our operational data without manual overrides." "How is this possible? We just upgraded the entire system last quarter." "It's not a failure on our end," Sarah explained. "CyberShield has initiated a full security compliance audit. They're systematically restricting our access to our own systems." "Without notice, they can't do that. According to our contract, they can. Section 14.3 allows for immediate security audits if they detect potential vulnerabilities." Harold ran a hand through his silver hair. "What's the impact?" Sarah's voice grew grimmer. 1.9 billion in transactions frozen. 82 flights grounded so far because we can't verify operational safety protocols through the automated system. Booking system down. We're going analog at all airports. Paper tickets, manual check-ins. Jesus Christ, Harold muttered. "Get legal on the phone. This has to violate some clause." "Already did," Sarah cut in. "They said CyberShield is operating within contractual boundaries. The audit can last up to 24 hours. 24 hours? Harold's voice rose. "We'll lose tens of millions. The stock will tank." "It's already down 12% in the last 30 minutes, Sarah confirmed. "And Harold, the press is picking up on this. It's being connected to an incident this morning." "What incident?" "A passenger removal at O'Hare. It's gone viral. Black executive removed from first class despite having a valid ticket. Social media is exploding with it." Harold's blood ran cold. "What executive?" "Raymond Jackson, CEO of CyberShield." The connection hit Harold like a physical blow. "You're telling me we removed the CEO of the company that controls our entire digital infrastructure from one of our flights?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you." Harold ended the call and immediately searched for the video. There it was. Raymond Jackson, a man whose company Harold had approved millions in contracts to, being escorted off a Skyway Airlines flight while protesting that he had a valid first-class ticket. The comments below the video were brutal. "Imagine discriminating against the guy who literally keeps your company running. Skyway about to find out actions have consequences. David Whitmore needs to be fired." Harold's assistant appeared, at his side, face pale. "Sir, we have reports of chaos at 17 airports. Passengers can't check in. Flights are grounded. Refunds can't be processed." "Get Raymond Jackson on the phone," Harold ordered. "Now." 5 excruciating minutes later, Harold heard the calm voice of Raymond Jackson on the line. "Mr. Thompson, I've been expecting your call." Harold cut straight to the point. "Mr. Jackson, I understand there was an unfortunate incident this morning." "Let's not minimize what happened," Raymond interrupted. "Your staff saw a black man in first class and immediately assumed I didn't belong there. No verification, no proper protocol, just prejudice, plain and simple. I want to personally apologize for any misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," Raymond said, his voice still eerily calm. "It was discrimination, and now your company is experiencing the consequences of that discrimination." Harold glanced at his tablet showing Skyway's stock in freefall. "The security audit is completely within our contractual rights," Raymond finished for him. "Your company is overdue for a comprehensive review of your systems." "This is going to cost us millions," Harold said, desperation creeping into his voice. "Discrimination cost me a potential $1.9 billion government contract," Raymond replied. Actions have consequences, Mr. Thompson. Harold paced the empty conference room. What do you want? Accountability. David Whitmore and any staff involved fired. Company-wide anti-bias training implemented within 30 days. A diverse hiring initiative with measurable goals. And a public apology acknowledging exactly what happened. That's excessive for one incident. One incident that was filmed and shared millions of times, Raymond countered. One incident that reveals a systemic problem. How many other black passengers has Skyway discriminated against who didn't? Have the power to respond? Harold stared out the window at the tarmac where dozens of Skyway planes sat grounded. I'll need to consult with our board. Of course, Raymond said smoothly. Take your time. The security audit will continue for the next 23 hours and 17 minutes. You can't hold our company hostage like this. I'm not holding anyone hostage, Mr. Thompson. I'm exercising my contractual rights while also giving you the opportunity to address a serious issue within your company. Distant shouting could be heard from the terminal. Harold watched as a line of frustrated passengers snaked through the check-in area. I'll call you back within the hour, Harold said tightly. I look forward to it, Raymond replied before ending the call. Harold immediately called an emergency board meeting. Within 20 minutes, 12 board members were connected via video conference, faces ranging from concerned to furious. This is extortion, declared Walter Briggs, a 70-year-old board member. We should countersue for business interference. With what leverage? Asked Patricia Gonzalez, another board member. Their audit is contractually permitted. Meanwhile, we have a viral video showing clear racial profiling by our staff. The PR damage is already severe, added Chief Marketing Officer Lisa Tanner. Celebrity accounts are reposting the video. We've lost 40,000 followers on social platforms in the last hour. Cancellations are spiking. And our stock? Asked another board member. Down 27% and falling, reported the CFO grimly. Harold rubbed his temples. We need to resolve this immediately. Jackson wants Whitmore fired, anti-bias training, diversity initiatives, and a public apology. Firing Whitmore opens us to a wrongful termination suit, the legal counsel pointed out. Which costs less, a settlement with Whitmore or 24 hours of our entire system being down? Harold countered. The boardroom fell silent as the calculation became clear. I've reviewed the video, Patricia said firmly. Whitmore violated company protocol. He didn't properly verify Mr. Jackson's documentation. That alone is grounds for termination. Walter Briggs shook his head. Giving in to these demands sets a dangerous precedent. So does publicly discriminating against customers, Patricia shot back, especially customers who have the power to shut down our entire operation. Harold's phone buzzed with another update. 30 more flights grounded, bringing the total to 82. The estimated financial impact was now approaching $50 million, and growing by the minute. I'm meeting with Jackson, Harold decided, face to face, today. And if he doesn't back down, Walter asked. Harold stared at the chaos unfolding on the tarmac below. Then God help Skyway Airlines. The CyberShield headquarters in downtown Chicago rose 68 stories above the city, its glass exterior reflecting clouds and sky. In the top-floor conference room, Raymond Jackson sat at the head of the table, Tamika Williams and Andre Phillips flanking him on either side. Across from them, Harold Thompson had arrived with his own team. Sarah Jenkins, CTO, Mark Davis, General Counsel, and Lisa Tanner, Chief Marketing Officer. Their expressions ranged from tense to openly hostile. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Mr. Jackson, Harold began, his practiced CEO voice betraying only a hint of strain. Raymond, he corrected. We might as well be on a first-name basis given the circumstances. Harold nodded stiffly. Raymond, I want to begin by extending my sincere apologies for the incident this morning. It falls far below the standards we set at Skyway. I appreciate that, Harold, but I'm more interested in actions than words at this point. Harold's jaw tightened. Before we proceed, I need to address the security audit. Our legal team believes it constitutes a retaliatory action that could expose CyberShield to liability. Andre Phillips, Raymond's counsel, spoke up. Section 14.3 of our agreement explicitly permits unscheduled security audits. There's no liability issue here. The timing is obviously punitive, Mark Davis countered. The timing is coincidental, Andre replied smoothly. But if you'd prefer to debate this in court while your systems remain down for another, he checked his watch. 22 hours and 43 minutes, we can certainly arrange that. Harold raised a hand to silence his lawyer. We're here to find a resolution, not escalate. Raymond nodded to Tamika, who tapped a tablet. The wall, screen illuminated with the viral video of Raymond's removal from the aircraft, now with over 12 million views across platforms. Let's watch this together, Raymond suggested, so we're all clear on what happened. The room fell silent as the video played. Raymond presenting his boarding pass repeatedly, David Whitmore refusing to properly verify it, the security officers arriving, Raymond being escorted off while white passengers watched silently. When it ended, Raymond looked directly at Harold. Now let's talk about David Whitmore's employment. History. Tamika tapped the tablet again. Records appeared on screen. 3 passenger complaints in the past 18 months, all from people of color, all claiming discriminatory treatment, Raymond said, all quietly resolved with travel vouchers and confidentiality agreements. Harold and his team exchanged surprised glances. How did you get this information? Mark Davis demanded. Public records requests, social media outreach, and good old-fashioned journalism, Andre replied. We have reporters very interested in this story. Raymond leaned forward. This isn't an isolated incident, Harold. It's a pattern. One your company has systematically buried. Harold's face had gone pale. I wasn't aware of these previous complaints. That's the problem, Raymond said. Discrimination flourishes in environments where leadership claims ignorance, where there's no accountability. What exactly do you want? Harold asked, his earlier confidence evaporating. I told you on the phone. David Whitmore terminated. Company-wide anti-bias training implemented within 30 days. A diverse hiring initiative with measurable goals. And a public apology acknowledging exactly what happened. Harold glanced at his legal counsel, who gave a barely perceptible nod. We can agree to those terms, Harold said carefully. But we need the systems restored immediately. The systems will be restored when I have signed documentation committing to these changes, Raymond replied. Not before. You're using your position to create accountability, Raymond cut in. Something that would never happen through conventional channels. For a moment, silence hung in the room. Then Raymond continued, his voice quieter, but no less intense. Do you know what it's like, Harold? To achieve everything society tells you to achieve. Education, success, wealth, only to be judged by the color of your skin the moment you walk onto a plane. Harold remained silent. When I was 28, Raymond continued, I closed my first $1 million contract, bought my mother a house. That same week, I was followed by security in an upscale department store while buying her a housewarming gift. He gestured to the floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Chicago's skyline. I built this company from nothing, created thousands of jobs, generated billions in value. And yet today, your employee took one look at me and decided I didn't belong. In first class, Harold shifted uncomfortably. I understand your frustration. No, you don't, Raymond said firmly. And that's the point. You can't understand it, but you can acknowledge it. You can address it. You can commit to changing it. Lisa Tanner, Skyway's CMO, spoke up for the first time. Mr. Jackson, from a purely practical standpoint, the changes you're requesting would benefit Skyway as well. Diverse companies perform better. Inclusive brands build stronger customer loyalty. Exactly. Raymond nodded. This isn't punishment. It's progress. Harold looked to his team, then back to Raymond. I'll need specific language for the agreement, and assurance that once signed, the systems will be immediately restored. My legal team has already drafted the document, Raymond replied, sliding a tablet across the table. Once signed, systems will be fully operational within 30 minutes. Harold scanned the document, then passed it to his legal counsel. After a few minutes of whispered consultation, Mark Davis reluctantly nodded. "It's straightforward and aligns with what was discussed," the lawyer confirmed. Harold took a deep breath and signed the document. "A wise decision," Raymond said, taking back the tablet. He tapped a few commands, then looked to Tamika. "Begin phased restoration of Skyway systems." Tamika nodded and stepped out to make the call. "I hope you understand, Raymond, that this has been an extraordinary situation," Harold said, his CEO composure returning now that a resolution was in sight. "Not something that would normally." "That's precisely the problem," Raymond interrupted. "Discrimination shouldn't be normal. It shouldn't require extraordinary measures to address. But until that changes, those with power and influence must use it to create accountability." Harold extended his hand across the table. "I believe we can work together to make Skyway a model for inclusivity in the airline industry." Raymond looked at the offered hand for a long moment before accepting it. "Actions, Harold, not words." As the Skyway team gathered their things to leave, Raymond remained seated, watching them go. Only when the door closed behind them did he allow himself a moment of reflection. The victory felt hollow in some ways. He shouldn't have needed to leverage his company's power to be treated with basic dignity and respect, and yet he couldn't deny the satisfaction of creating immediate consequences for discrimination, something most victims never got the chance to do. His phone buzzed with a text from the Department of Defense. The contract meeting was confirmed for tomorrow morning. Maybe, just maybe, something good would come from all of this. Breaking news tonight as the connection between a viral discrimination incident and a massive airline technology meltdown comes to light, announced the CNN anchor, her expression serious. Skyway Airlines is facing unprecedented scrutiny after CEO Raymond Jackson of CyberShield was removed from a first-class flight despite having a valid ticket. Hours later, Skyway's entire digital infrastructure went down during what CyberShield called a routine security audit. Raymond muted the television in his downtown penthouse as Tamika entered with 2 cups of coffee. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a wall of screens displaying news coverage, social media trends, and stock tickers. "You've certainly made an impression," Tamika said, handing him a cup. "The story is everywhere." Raymond nodded. Flying while black and Skyway shutdown are trending globally. Skyway's stock is down 32%. Harold Thompson released the public apology an hour ago. On one screen, Thompson's recorded statement played silently. The ticker below read, "Skyway CEO. We failed our commitment to treating all passengers with dignity and respect." "Good," Tamika said firmly. "They needed this wake-up call." Raymond's phone buzzed with yet another interview request, this one from the New York Times. His PR team had fielded over 300 media inquiries since yesterday. "The DoD meeting is in 2 hours, Raymond noted, checking his watch. "The contract is still in play, but they're concerned about the publicity." "You protected your dignity and held a corporation accountable," Tamika countered. "If anything, that should demonstrate your integrity." Raymond's personal assistant entered, looking apologetic for the interruption. "Mr. Jackson, Oprah Winfrey's team is on the line. They want you for an exclusive interview." Before Raymond could respond, his phone lit up with a call from Andre. "You need to see this," Andre said without preamble when Raymond answered. "David Whitmore just gave an interview to Fox News. It's bad." Raymond unmuted one of the screens where Whitmore's face filled the frame. The former flight attendant looked simultaneously defiant and victimized. "I was simply following protocol," Whitmore insisted. "Mr. Jackson became confrontational when we tried to verify his ticket. This is a case of a powerful CEO using his influence to punish an airline for doing its job." "That's not what the video shows," the interviewer pointed out. "Videos can be misleading," Whitmore countered. "What you don't see is how intimidating he was being to our staff." Raymond's jaw tightened. The attempt to paint him as the angry black man was as predictable as it was infuriating. "He needs to be shut down," Tamika said. No, Raymond replied, thoughtfully. Let him talk. The more he says, the more he reveals about himself and the culture at Skyway. His phone buzzed again, a text from Harold Thompson. Whitmore went rogue. We didn't authorize this interview. Working to address it now. Have you ever witnessed someone trying to rewrite reality after getting caught on camera? Type 1 in the comments if you've seen this kind of backpedaling before. Hit like if you believe Raymond is handling this situation with remarkable restraint. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about accountability in action. Now, for the million-dollar question. Should Raymond accept Oprah's interview request and tell his side of the story? Or would it be better to stay above the fray? Let's see what happened next. Another text came through, this one from a number Raymond didn't recognize. I was on your flight yesterday. I should have spoken up. I'm sorry. It was small comfort, but Raymond appreciated the acknowledgement. Too often, silence was complicity. His media strategist, Zoe Park, entered with a tablet in hand. We need to decide on our approach. Every network wants you. Social media is exploding. Black executives across industries are sharing similar experiences with the hashtag #MyFirstClassStory. Raymond scrolled through some of the posts. Upgraded to first class with points. Flight attendant asked me 3 times if I was in the right seat. My first class story. Business trip, Fortune 500 company. White colleague and coach. I'm in first class. Guess who got questioned? My first class story. Pilot literally did a double take when he saw me in 1A. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. On my first class story. This is bigger than me now, Raymond realized, aloud. Exactly, Zoe agreed. You've sparked a conversation about the everyday indignities Black professionals face. The question is, how do you want to shape that conversation? Raymond considered his options. 1 carefully chosen interview. Someone who won't sensationalize but will give the issue the depth it deserves. Oprah, Tamika and Zoe said simultaneously. Raymond nodded. Set it up. 3 days later, Raymond sat across from Oprah Winfrey in her studio. Millions watched as he recounted not just the Skyway incident, but the lifetime of similar experiences that had preceded it. What made this time different? Oprah asked. Why did you decide to take action in this particular instance? Raymond considered the question carefully. 2 things. First, I had the means to create immediate accountability, something most victims of discrimination never have. Second, I realized that staying silent wasn't protecting my dignity anymore. It was enabling a system that would continue hurting others. Some have criticized your response as disproportionate, Oprah noted, using your company's leverage to essentially shut down an airline over a personal slight. It wasn't a slight, Raymond corrected firmly. It was discrimination, and it wasn't personal. It was systemic. The records we uncovered showed a pattern of similar incidents with the same employee, all buried with confidentiality agreements. So you see this as a necessary disruption? Sometimes systems don't change until the cost of maintaining the status quo becomes too high, Raymond replied. For too long, the cost of discrimination has been borne by its victims, while those responsible face no consequences. The interview resonated powerfully. Within hours, clips were being shared across platforms, sparking further discussion about privilege, power, and accountability. Meanwhile, other Black executives began coming forward with their stories. The CEO of a healthcare company described being mistaken for kitchen staff at his own company gala. A federal judge recounted being asked for her credential 3 times while her white colleagues walked straight into a courthouse. A Hollywood director told of being stopped by security on the way to accept his own award. What had begun as one incident was evolving into a movement, a collective refusal to accept the 1,000 small indignities that came with being Black in predominantly white spaces. Not all the attention was positive. Conservative commentators accused Raymond of playing the race card and weaponizing wokeness. Online trolls flooded his social media with racist comments. Death threats arrived at CyberShield headquarters, necessitating increased security. Through it all, Raymond maintained his focus on the DoD contract negotiations, which had resumed with cautious optimism. The officials seemed impressed by his principled stand, though they never said so explicitly. As the media storm entered its second week, Skyway Airlines announced a major initiative: a comprehensive review of their customer service policies, mandatory anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff, and a diversity advisory board that would report directly to the CEO. Harold Thompson personally called Raymond to inform him of these steps. "I want you to know we're taking this seriously," Harold said. "This isn't just PR. We're committed to real change." "I'm glad to hear it," Raymond replied. "But the real test will be 6 months from now when the cameras are gone and no one's watching anymore." After he hung up, Raymond stood at his office window, looking out at the city where he'd grown up, where he'd faced countless obstacles and indignities on his path to success. The media storm would eventually pass. The hashtags would fade. But perhaps something would remain: a small shift in awareness, a slightly higher cost for discrimination, a few more people willing to speak up next time they witnessed injustice. It wasn't enough, but it was something. And for now, that would have to do. The email arrived at 3:17 a.m., its subject line stark in Raymond's inbox: "Stay in your place." Raymond scrolled through the message, another in a growing collection of hate mail. This one detailed graphic fantasies of violence, peppered with racial slurs and warnings about overstepping. He forwarded it to security without comment, the 24th such email this week. 2 weeks had passed since the Skyway incident. What had begun as a clear-cut case of discrimination had morphed into something more complex and polarizing: a referendum on power, race, and accountability in America. "You've seen this?" Tamika asked, entering his office and placing a tablet on his desk. The Wall Street Journal opinion piece was headlined, "The Dangerous Precedent of the Skyway Shutdown, When CEOs Use Corporate Power as Personal Weapons." Raymond skimmed the article, which portrayed him as an overly sensitive, vindictive executive who had abused his company's position to wage a personal vendetta. "They completely ignore the discrimination aspect," he noted. "Of course they do," Tamika replied. "It's easier to debate corporate ethics than confront racism." His phone buzzed with a text from Andre. Whitmore filed wrongful termination lawsuit, claiming racial discrimination against white employees. Raymond shook his head at the irony. "He's claiming reverse discrimination, playing to his base," Tamika observed. "He's become a cause célèbre for the right-wing media. GoFundMe for his legal fees has raised over $300,000. Raymond's security chief, James Wilson, entered after a brief knock. "Sir, we need to discuss the threats. They're escalating." He placed a folder on Raymond's desk containing printed screenshots, transcripts of voicemails, and security camera footage of a suspicious car repeatedly driving past Raymond's home. "We've increased security at all facilities, but I'm concerned about your residents and family," James continued. "I'd recommend relocating temporarily." Raymond thought of his teenage daughter, Zora, who had already been pulled from school after receiving threats by association. "Arrange it," Raymond agreed reluctantly. After James left, Tamika stayed behind. "There's something else." For board, members have expressed concerns about the company being dragged into a political firestorm. Harrison Mills is leading the charge. Raymond wasn't surprised. Mills, the oldest and most conservative board member, had been skeptical of Raymond's leadership from the beginning. "They're worried about the DoD contract," Raymond guessed. "Among other things," Tamika confirmed. "Mills suggested we need to focus on business, not activism." Before Raymond could respond, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Jackson, the Department of Defense acquisition team is on line 1. Raymond exchanged a quick glance with Tamika before answering. "This is Raymond Jackson." "Mr. Jackson, this is Colonel Robert Hayes. I'm calling regarding the security infrastructure contract." Raymond braced himself. "Yes, Colonel." "The Secretary has concerns about the recent publicity surrounding CyberShield, specifically the use of your security systems as leverage in a private dispute." "With respect, Colonel, it wasn't leverage. It was a contractually permitted security audit." "The timing was certainly convenient," Hayes replied dryly. Regardless, we need assurances that government systems would never be subjected to similar audits if a disagreement arose. Our government contracts have entirely different terms and security protocols, Raymond explained. What happened with Skyway could not happen with DoD systems. I'm glad to hear that, Hayes said. We'll need those assurances in writing before proceeding. After the call ended, Raymond sat in silence for a moment. They're still considering us, he said finally, but they want guarantees. Reasonable, Tamika acknowledged. We can provide those. Raymond's phone lit up with another call. This, one from Harold Thompson. Raymond, Harold began without preamble. We have a situation. David Whitmore gave another interview, and he made some allegations. What kind of allegations? Raymond asked, already dreading the answer. He claims you tried to use a counterfeit boarding pass, that your removal was due to suspected fraud, not discrimination. Raymond nearly dropped the phone. That's absolutely false. I purchased the ticket through my corporate account. There's a paper trail. I know, Harold said quickly. We've reviewed the records. There's no question your ticket was legitimate, but Whitmore is pushing this narrative, and it's gaining traction in certain circles. After ending the call, Raymond sat back in his chair, a familiar weariness settling over him. The truth was being rewritten in real time. His experience of discrimination transformed into a story of entitlement and deception. They're trying to make me the villain, he said to Tamika. Because it's easier than confronting the real issue, she replied. You know how this works, Ray. First, they deny discrimination happened. Then they attack the victim's character. Raymond nodded grimly. It was a playbook he'd seen many times before, just never directed at him with such intensity. His phone buzzed again. A text from Zora. Dad, there are reporters outside Grandma's house. Raymond felt a surge of anger. His mother, at 72, had already been through enough in her life. Now she was being harassed because her son had dared to stand up against discrimination. Get security to my mother's house, he told Tamika. And call Harrison Mills. Schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Later that evening, Raymond sat in the living room of a company-owned safe house, watching news coverage of the controversy. On Fox News, David Whitmore was being interviewed. Again, now portrayed as a working-class victim of cancel culture. I've given 27 years to the airline industry, Whitmore said, eyes glistening with rehearsed tears. And it was all taken away because a powerful CEO didn't like being questioned. The host nodded sympathetically. So you were just doing your job, following protocol? Exactly, Whitmore agreed. We verify tickets all the time, but when you do it with someone who happens to be a minority, suddenly it's discrimination. Raymond muted the television, too disgusted to continue watching. His phone lit up with a text from a number he didn't recognize. I'm a flight attendant for Skyway. Whitmore is lying. He has a history of profiling passengers. Many of us have witnessed it, but we're afraid to report him. Some of us are willing to come forward now. Raymond stared at the message for a long moment, hope mingling with caution. It could be a trap, someone trying to get him to make statements that could be used against him later. But what if it was legitimate? What if there were witnesses willing to counter Whitmore's narrative? He forwarded the message to Andre with instructions to verify the sender and proceed with caution. As he prepared for bed, Raymond found himself reflecting on the past 2 weeks. What had begun as a simple act of standing up for himself had exploded into something much larger and more complex. The backlash was fiercer than he'd anticipated, the personal cost higher. Had he done the right thing? Or had his response to discrimination inadvertently made life harder for others fighting the same battle? The question lingered as he drifted into an uneasy sleep, haunted by the knowledge that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new attacks, and perhaps a board that was losing faith in his leadership. The resistance wasn't just from outside forces, it was also the doubt creeping into his own mind, questioning if the price of this particular stand had been too high. The conference room fell silent as the final Skyway flight attendant finished her testimony. On the video call, 12 faces reflected varying degrees of shock and discomfort. Thank you, Ms. Chen, Harold Thompson said gravely. Your candor is appreciated. Raymond sat at the head of the table, Andre and Tamika flanking him as they had for the past 3 hours. Across from them, Harold Thompson and his team looked distinctly shaken. What had begun as a tense negotiation session had transformed into something unexpected, a truth and reconciliation forum. 5 current and former Skyway employees had come forward with accounts of David Whitmore's pattern of discriminatory behavior and the company culture that had protected him. I reported him twice. Janet Chen, a flight attendant with 15 years of service, had just explained. Both times management said they'd look into it. Nothing changed. After a while, you stop reporting because what's the point? Harold cleared his throat. In light of these testimonies, Skyway Airlines acknowledges that the incident with Mr. Jackson was not isolated, but part of a systemic failure to address discriminatory behavior. He glanced down at the document before him. We accept all terms of the revised agreement. The agreement went far beyond Raymond's original demands. Now it included an independent diversity audit of all Skyway operations, a complete overhaul of reporting procedures for discrimination complaints, and quarterly, public reporting on diversity metrics and incident resolution. The board has approved a $50 million investment in these initiatives, Harold added. We're committed to transformative change, not just damage control. After the Skyway team disconnected, Raymond turned to his colleagues. Well, that was unexpected. 7 decades of combined airline experience in that room, Tamika observed. And they seemed genuinely shocked by what they heard. That's the problem with systemic issues, Andre said. The people at the top are often the last to see them. Raymond's phone buzzed with a notification. The Department of Defense had made their decision. He opened the email, scanning it quickly. We got the contract, he announced. $1.9 billion 3-year term. The relief in the room was palpable. Despite everything, CyberShield had secured the largest contract in the company's history. They included a note, Raymond continued. Your handling of a difficult situation demonstrated integrity and a commitment to accountability that aligns with DoD values. Tamika smiled. So standing up against discrimination didn't hurt us after all. In this case, Raymond cautioned, we can't assume it will always work out this way. He thought about the cost of the past 3 weeks. The death threats, his family's disrupted lives, the board's concerns, the public attacks on his character. The victory felt important, but incomplete. 6 weeks later, Raymond stood in the auditorium of his former South Chicago high school, addressing 400 students at a career day event. Behind him, a banner read, From this neighborhood to the boardroom. Pathways to tech careers. Success isn't just about what you achieve, Raymond told the predominantly Black and Latino students. It's about what you do with that achievement. The doors you open for others. The systems you change. He'd used part of his compensation from the DoD contract to establish the Future Tech Leaders program, providing scholarships, mentoring, and internships for students from underserved communities. There will be moments when you're the only one who looks like you in the room, he continued. Moments when others question your right to be there. In those moments, remember, you belong. You earned your place. And sometimes, standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone who will come after you. After the presentation, Raymond's Weitzier phone lit up with a text from Tamika. Turn on CNN. He found a quiet corner and opened the news app to see Skyway Airlines trending again. Harold Thompson was at a press conference, unveiling the company's comprehensive anti-bias initiative. 3 months ago, we failed one of our passengers in a way that revealed deeper problems within our company culture, Harold was saying. Today, we're announcing industry-leading changes to ensure that failure never repeats itself. The camera panned to show David Whitmore standing beside Harold, looking humbled. I also want to introduce our new Director of Inclusive Customer Experience, Harold continued. David Whitmore has undergone extensive training and personal growth. Having acknowledged his past biases, he's uniquely positioned to help transform our approach to passenger interactions. Raymond stared at the screen in disbelief. They'd rehabilitated Whitmore rather than simply firing him, transforming him from problem to solution. His first reaction was anger. This seemed like a PR stunt, rather than genuine accountability. But as he listened to Whitmore speak about his journey of understanding and commitment to change, Raymond recognized something authentic in the man's words. "I was wrong," Whitmore said simply. "My actions came from biases I didn't want to acknowledge. I hurt people, including Mr. Jackson. I can't undo that harm, but I can work to prevent others from experiencing it." Later that evening, Raymond received an unexpected email from Harold Thompson. "Raymond, I wanted you to hear this from me directly. The decision to work with David, rather than simply terminate him, came after much consideration. He's been through intensive anti-bias training and therapy. More importantly, he requested the opportunity to make amends through action. The employees who testified against him have all approved this approach. I understand if you find this decision questionable, but I believe true transformation requires both accountability and opportunity for redemption." Harold. Raymond sat with this information, his feelings complex. Was this a genuine transformation, or a clever PR strategy? And did the distinction matter if the result was positive change? He thought back to his own journey, how anger at discrimination had fueled his success, how achieving power had finally given him the means to demand accountability. But true transformation wasn't just about punishment. It was about changing systems, changing minds, creating new possibilities. Perhaps Harold and Skyway were genuinely committed to that work now. Time would tell. His phone rang. Tamika again. "Have you seen the new industry numbers?" she asked when he answered. "No, what's happening?" 4 major airlines have announced diversity initiatives in the past week, Tamika reported. They're all citing the Skyway incident as a wake-up call. It's creating a competitive race to demonstrate inclusive practices. Raymond smiled slightly. "Corporate peer pressure as a force for good. That's unexpected." "It's market forces," Tamika corrected. "Companies are realizing discrimination is bad business." After they hung up, Raymond opened his laptop to find an email from a black executive at another tech company. "What you did created space for all of us. Yesterday, I was questioned in first class. Instead of staying quiet, I spoke up. The flight attendant apologized immediately. Small victory, but it felt revolutionary. Thank you for showing that we don't have to accept the 1,000 small indignities anymore." Raymond closed his eyes, emotions welling up unexpectedly. This was what mattered. Not the contract, not the policy changes, but the subtle shift in what people felt empowered to demand, to expect, to insist upon. True transformation wasn't an event, but a process. It happened in boardrooms and policy documents, yes, but also in countless individual moments when people chose dignity over accommodation, accountability over convenience. The journey wasn't over, but something had changed. And that change was spreading, rippling outward in ways even Raymond couldn't have anticipated. 6 months after the incident that had sparked a national conversation about race, power, and corporate accountability, Raymond Jackson boarded a Skyway Airlines flight to San Francisco. First class, seat 2A. "Good morning, Mr. Jackson." The flight attendant greeted him with genuine warmth. "Welcome aboard." Raymond nodded, noting the subtle differences from his last Skyway experience. The crew was visibly more diverse. The flight attendant checked his boarding pass carefully, just as she had for the white passenger ahead of him. As he settled into his seat, Raymond reflected on the transformation of the past 6 months. Skyway's diversity initiative had exceeded expectations, becoming a model for the industry. Their quarterly report showed a 70% reduction in passenger complaints related to discriminatory treatment. More surprisingly, Skyway's stock had not only recovered, but reached new highs as their improved customer service ratings translated to increased market share. What had begun as a crisis had evolved into a competitive advantage. Raymond's phone buzzed with a text from Harold Thompson. "Safe travels. Let's catch up in SF tomorrow." Their relationship had evolved into an unexpected partnership. Harold had proven genuinely committed to change, and Raymond had found himself increasingly involved in Skyway's transformation efforts, not as an adversary, but as an advisor. The plane began its taxi to the runway as Raymond noticed another black executive being seated across the aisle. The man handed his boarding pass to a flight attendant Raymond recognized, Janet Chen, one of the employees who had testified about Whitmore's behavior. Janet verified the passenger's seat assignment with the same professional courtesy she showed everyone. No double checks, no suspicious glances, just consistent, respectful service. The normality of the interaction struck Raymond as both ordinary and extraordinary. This was how it should always have been, and now increasingly, it was. His phone buzzed with another message, this one from Zora. "Dad, I got the internship at Silicon Valley MedTech." Raymond smiled with pride. His daughter was carving her own path, facing her own challenges. But perhaps the world she navigated would be slightly more just because of the stands taken by her father and countless others. The plane lifted off, banking over Chicago, the city where Raymond had grown up, the city where he'd built his company, the city that had shaped him, in ways both painful and profound. As the skyline receded, Raymond's thoughts turned to David Whitmore. The former flight attendant had become an unlikely advocate for change, speaking at industry conferences about his journey from bias to awareness. His sincerity still surprised Raymond. People could change when given the right incentives and opportunities. Another lesson from this complex experience. Midway through the flight, Raymond opened his laptop to review CyberShield's latest project, an AI-driven system designed to identify patterns of discriminatory treatment in customer service interactions. The technology had emerged directly from the Skyway incident, another unexpected positive outcome. "More coffee, Mr. Jackson?" Janet Chen appeared at his side with a pot. "Thank you, Janet," Raymond replied. "How's the new reporting system working?" "Out." Janet smiled. "Night and day difference. Issues get addressed now, not buried." She lowered her voice slightly. "You created real change, sir. We all see it." As she moved on to the next passenger, Raymond felt a quiet satisfaction. The system hadn't changed because of his wealth or corporate power alone. It had changed because he'd used those advantages to create consequences, to demand accountability, to insist on dignity. The broader impact continued to unfold. 3. Other major airlines had implemented similar diversity initiatives. A consortium of Black executives had formed to address systemic discrimination across industries. The hashtag #ThatcherMyFirstClassStory had evolved into a nonprofit organization providing legal support to victims of consumer discrimination. None of this erased the reality of racism in America, but it had shifted the cost-benefit analysis for corporations. Discrimination now carried a higher price tag, in public relations, in legal exposure, in potential business disruption. As the plane began its descent into San Francisco, Raymond received an email notification. The message was from a young software engineer who had joined CyberShield through the Future Tech Leaders program. "Mr. Jackson, I presented my first project to the team today. When I finished, one of the senior engineers asked if I was in the right meeting. This is for developers, not interns." Before I could respond, 3 other team members spoke up, saying my work was excellent and I absolutely belonged there. Small moment, big difference. Thank you for creating this space for us. Raymond smiled. This was the new reality he had hoped to build. Not one where discrimination never occurred, but one where it was no longer silently tolerated, where speaking up was normalized, where accountability was expected. The plane touched down smoothly. As passengers prepared to deplane, Raymond noticed a subtle interaction a few rows ahead. A flight attendant was carefully checking an elderly Black woman's boarding pass, taking extra time to assist her with gathering her belongings. The woman thanked her with a surprised smile, as if unaccustomed to such attentive service. Small changes, accumulating into a different experience of the world. As Raymond waited his turn to exit, he recalled his mother's words after he'd told her about the Skyway incident. "Baby, sometimes you have to make noise for them to hear you, but make sure it's the right kind of noise, the kind that opens doors for others, not just yourself." He had tried to do that, not perfectly perhaps, but meaningfully. And somewhere in the messy, complex aftermath of one discriminatory moment on a plane, real change had taken root. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough until such incidents became unthinkable rather than merely costly. But it was something. And sometimes, something was everything. What would you do if you witnessed discrimination on your next flight? Would you speak up like Raymond did, or stay silent like the other passengers? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about justice and accountability. And remember to share this video with someone who needs to understand that sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone. Thank you for watching, and never forget, your dignity is non-negotiable. Raymond Jackson's story illustrates that true accountability requires both power and courage. In a world where discrimination often goes unchallenged, those with leverage have a unique responsibility to create consequences. Raymond used his position, not for vengeance, but for systemic change, demonstrating that sometimes fighting injustice requires disrupting comfortable systems. The transformation at Skyway shows that corporate culture changes only when the cost of discrimination exceeds the comfort of the status quo. Harold Thompson initially responded to protect his company's bottom line, but ultimately embraced meaningful reform when confronted with undeniable evidence of systemic problems. Perhaps most importantly, Raymond's stand created ripple effects, far beyond his personal vindication. By refusing to accept discrimination, he empowered countless others to advocate for their own dignity. The most powerful change wasn't policy documents or diversity initiatives, but the subtle shift in what people felt entitled to demand. This story reminds us that dignity is non-negotiable, accountability is essential, and sometimes the most important battles are fought not for ourselves, but for everyone who will come after us. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you had the courage to speak up? Or have you been in Raymond's position, forced to decide whether to accept mistreatment or demand respect? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button to help others find it, and subscribe for more powerful narratives about courage in the face of injustice. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder that they deserve respect in every space they enter. Thank you for listening, and remember, your actions today create the reality others will live in tomorrow.